お主の考えとは何じゃ。早く申してみろ。
皆さん、裸になってください。
お主はわしらに恥をかかす気か。
What's up everyone, I am the Kaiju no Kami, and today I'm going to be reviewing the recently released DVD from Mill Creek of Ultraman 80. In 1975, Ultraman Leo came to an end with abysmal ratings. At the same time, Japan was facing an oil crisis which rose production costs astronomically. Both of these factors helped tell Tsuburaya it was time to put the Ultra series to rest for a little while and try again later once the crisis lessened. They then teamed up with Sunrise in 1979 to create an anime centered around the Ultra franchise, which was a success, garnering Tsuburaya to think it was time to bring the Ultra series back in live action form, a decision they quickly came to regret. In 1980, tokusatsu shows were at an all-time low in audience approval, thanks to the wave of newly animated shows that were dominating the airwaves. People were enamored with what anime could do that they simply lost interest in the vast majority of live-action programming. Even Kamen Rider could not keep its momentum going as its current series, Super 1, also suffered from low ratings. No idea why Sentai remained strong, it just did. Nevertheless, Tsuburaya brought Ultraman back to television with Ultraman 80. Is Ultraman 80 more original than its name implies? Or is it nothing more than a cheap rehash of what came before? Let's find out. The heroes. The star of the show is one Yamato Takeshi, who has come to Earth to be a teacher. At least, initially. Yamato, played by Hatsunori Hasegawa, is a full-time teacher by day, part-time member of the monster-fighting military organization known as the Utility Government Members. UGM for short. At night and on Sundays. At the start of our show, Yamato becomes a science teacher at Sakuragaoka Junior High School. There, he wishes to teach students about the joys of life and how to overcome any obstacle so they can turn their negative energy into a positive one. He also finds himself infatuated with the school's gym teacher, Kyoko Aihara, and the two of them become... Nope! None of that matters because the show drops its school aspect after 12 episodes without any sort of resolution.
Ultraman 80が私の恋人です。
See, now that's some bullshit.
That's right! After you watch the first episode, you might as well skip to episode 13 because everything in between does not matter. It's very frustrating and is completely unacceptable. All they had to do was show a scene of Yamato telling his students that due to increased monster attacks, he was going to have to leave teaching in order to focus on being a UGM member full time. Why they couldn't do that bewilders me and tells me Tsuburaya had no freaking idea what the hell they were doing with the show one bit. Ultraman 80 is hands down the laziest Ultra series I have watched thus far, and that is saying something. In fact, I owe Ace an apology. Supposedly, the reason they dropped the teaching aspect is because parent groups wrote in saying it was promoting the terrible school culture the country was experiencing in 1980, and Tsuburaya caved into those complaints. There is no proof to back this up, and even if true, it still doesn't take away from the fact that they poorly handled the transition. You know what? You, Ultraman 80. As of episode 13, Yamato is no different from any other lead hero from the previous string of Ultra shows. He's a part of the military who takes on monsters and then transforms into his Ultra counterpart the moment a battle gets intense. As 80, he has a plethora of attacks that help him win a battle no matter the situation. From a design standpoint, I find 80 to be the most boring of Ultraman the show has had to date. There is nothing distinct about his look one bit. The majority of his fights are just as bland, outside of the times where he seems to be spasming in battle as if he were experiencing a seizure or something. He also doesn't seem to be as violent as his predecessors, for he never rips the stomachs out of his adversaries, tears their appendages off and beats them with it, slices them in half, punches holes through their bodies, and so on. The worst thing he does is smack a child monster.
Ultraman 80は親怪獣だけを徹底的に攻撃した。
In fact, the lack of doing anything truly violent renders his battles rather uninspiring. Should I even mention the intense character shields, as was the case in one episode when these guys died after one hit? While he and his female companion are just fine. I also don't get one moment where he says he is afraid to die in space alone, even though he could just easily transform into 80 and escape.
地球のために戦って死んでいけるならそれで本望だ。とはいえ、一人ぽっちで死んでいく寂しさはたけしの気持ちを重く沈ませた。
Yamato's UGM cohorts include their commander Kazuki Oyama, the female operator Emi Jono, the captain who joins the crew about a quarter of the way into the show named Jinkichi Ito, UGM's photography and PR man Teruo Sera, and a few other soldiers, Tokihiko Harada and Hiroshi Tajima, who are just randomly replaced halfway through the series with Shinhachiro Fujimori and Noboru Ikeda. Oyama also disappears from time to time, leaving Ito in charge. Unfortunately, the vast majority of them are utterly pointless, with the exceptions being Ito, Jono, and Sera, who each get one episode to their name. Masaki Daimon.
何？ウルトラマン80？しまった。俺の正体がバレたか。
Iri Ishida.
もう一度あの可愛い私のミュウに戻って。
It's also worth mentioning that Ishida was also featured in the G.I. Joe Origin Snake Eyes movie that recently came out as the leader of the Arashikage ninjas. And Akihiko Sugasaki portrayed this trio.
ああ、中学の時全校マラソンで僕がダウンしそうになった時もシャーって励ましてくれましたよね、先輩。
We get to meet Ito's fiancé in the show's only multi-part story.
君はチーフとどういう関係なんだ？
婚約者の星沢子です。
婚約者？
フランスにいる間、ずっと文通をしていたんです。
Well, that settles it.
Sierra has an episode that introduces his mentor figure, who made him the man he is today.
どっちょ、セランチョ、なんだいそれ。そう言ってよくみんなにいじめられたんだよ。それを土山先輩いつもかばってくれた。いつも一緒に泳ぎに行ってさ。あ、僕が泳げるようになったらもう先輩のおかげなんだよ。
As for Jono, surprisingly, she becomes the most fleshed out member on the team.
もっとお手柄立てて。ほら、パリの UGM ヨーロッパエリア。あそこの女性部隊のキャップ。あれが目標なのよ。
Her father is one of UGM's lead scientists, played by the amazing and stupendous Kenji Sahara. She has her own squadron of cadets she trains to be future UGM soldiers. It is also hinted that she has feelings for Yamato, which I personally believe comes off as bullshit, considering the writers couldn't be bothered to give the Yamato-Kyoko romance plot a conclusion. Towards the tail end of the show, Jono is replaced with Ryoko Hoshi, who is actually Ultra Woman. Who I should mention is a character featured on the DVD cover, even though she is only in one freaking episode as Ultra Woman. Why? She is utterly useless and brought nothing new to the table. Speaking of useless, there is a pointless girl who comes in halfway through that exists to tell Yamato what the weather is going to be like.
今日の天気を報告します。南南東の風、風力1、宇宙気象も特に異常なし。以上です。
ありがとう。
ヤマト隊員。今日の天気は荒れ模様。気をつけて。
ありがとう。
Okay. And that matters why? UGM is okay as an organization with some of the better uniforms in a good while. I do like how at the start of the series they are quite laid back thanks to the Earth seeing no monster attacks for 5 years.
怪獣だ。まさか。だってキャップ、怪獣はこの5年間一度も出現していないんですよ。
キャップだけですもんね。実際に怪獣と戦ったことがあるのは。
さあ、それよりさっきの続き。
Not only has the time made them feel pompous towards being a defender of the planet, but it means there is room for them to grow, which sadly did not happen. Furthermore, their intelligence seems to wither away as the show progresses, as there are times when they seem to act like complete idiots. Like, why are the guards just standing there getting shot at? Oh. At least they can beat a monster on their own every now and then.
I came in like a wrecking ball.
Yatta! Yatta!
And I do like that the UGM buildings were constructed out of their initials. The Monsters and Aliens. The Monsters and Aliens are exactly what you would expect from an Ultra series. There's nothing special about them, and yet nothing dreadful. Well, except for this freakish fish. Oof! Easily the ugliest looking thing in this entire show. The Bolton returns for a pair of episodes.
さあ、今度こそは地球をたっぷりと痛めつけてやるさ。
Gomer and Red King make a resurgence. There is an interesting group of aliens who come to Earth looking to have the Earth join some galactic federation, though all I thought of was the Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man.
Gentlemen, please understand our language. 今、地球が銀河大連邦へ加入するための調印が行われていた。
それでは記者の方はお下がりください。これより調印式を行います。
We've got an episode featuring monster blood in space. One creature comes to Earth to eat a baby monster.
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back ribs.
Another of my favorites in the design department was this plant beast. A three-headed dragon. A monster who dances to rock music.
たけしが驚いたのも無理はない。怪獣が目を覚ましたのは、なんと生徒たちのエレキサウンドだったのだ。怪獣はことのほかこの音がお気に召したらしい。
And Salamandra. The effects and music. The effects and music are fine for the time period. Superimposing scenes look as good as always. There are moments of pure dread and atmosphere, which is always a good thing. I love the camera work in an episode where Yamato is taken to a phantom town by aliens. I don't recall seeing any effects that made me cringe, nor did the suit for 80s seem to fall apart throughout the show. As for the music, Toru Fuyuki's soundtrack is the same as always, just with an 80s aesthetic to it. There are some good pieces to be had, even if it didn't fully blow me away. There are 2 openings and ending themes, all done by Talisman. The first is the most 80s piece of 80s music that ever 80'd. It's cheesy, but very catchy. I cannot say the same for the second opening, Ganbare Ultraman 80, which kicks off at episode 40 and is not even a fraction as good as the previous arrangement. The ending themes, Let's Go UGM and We Are Earthlings, leave a lot to be desired. Even so, for being the first ever Ultraman ending songs, I'll give them some leeway. The episodes. This show is just a mess. Episodes are all over the place in quality control. Most of them come off as just rehashes of better episodes from 80s predecessors. For example, there is an episode centered around a ship called the Queen that had sunk beneath the waves years prior. The ship's AI is hijacked by aliens and starts attacking other ships, collecting them into its body.
やつが進んでいるコースは15年前にプログラミングされたクイーンズ号の進路と同じなんですよ。やつはクイーンズ号の最終目的地、つまり東京湾に進んでいるんですよ。なんだって?
Sound familiar? It's the same plot as the Ultra 7 episode that featured Iron Rocks. Then there are episodes that should have taken the 7 approach and had 80 fight them human-sized, like the one with this killer shaving cream. An alien without a physical form dissolves people via some sort of liquid material. It takes over the body of an esteemed doctor, leaving Yamato in a bind as to how to deal with the invader. The being removes itself from the doctor and grows into a giant monster, and a standard Ultraman battle ensues. This one could have easily been an episode revolving around a battle of wills, and only had 80 transformed to exorcise the alien from the doctor's physique. Instead, it just becomes another run-of-the-mill generic Ultraman episode by the end, diminishing everything the show built up in its first 2/3. The same thing happened again with the one revolving around Sarah's mentor. And then you have the aforementioned school aspect that took up the first 12 episodes, which, as I said, was a complete waste of my fucking time. I also don't care for how much the show started focusing on Children of the Week plots during the last quarter that took away from developing UGM. It tells me that the writers were just completely out of ideas and started scraping from the bottom of the barrel. There's even an episode where the cast is talking about hallucinations that were happening, and what they said sounded more interesting than any of the episodes we got.
そうそう。あの時はおかしかったな。80がですね、怪獣が潜んでいるビルを持ち上げようとしたら、これが逆転現象の蜃気楼。さすがの80も驚いてたな。
Like seriously, I want to see that. I want to see 80 like trying to lift up a building or something to throw at a monster that isn't actually there. Another issue is 80 relies too heavily on exposition. Like, my god, the narrator got on my nerves because something would happen on screen and then the narrator would tell me what I just watched.
たけしはやはりウルトラマン80に変身した。
No shit.
We are also constantly told that Ultraman 80 has to leave Earth if anyone finds out his identity, though we never learn as to why he would have to leave the planet.
ウルトラマン80に変身しなければ人々を救えない。しかし人前で変身するとたけしは地球を去らねばならないのだ。ウルトラマン80に変身しようと決心した。たとえ地球から去ることになっても。
There's also a lot of, well, duh moments to be had.
その中でも一番恐ろしいのが三首竜だった。この三首竜は三つの首で。
What? The three-headed dragon has 3 heads? Oh my god! I would have never known that if you didn't tell me. Thank you so much, Sensei.
健一君の手術の成功率は 15%。100人のうち15人しか助からない難しいもんです。
Due to all of this, I have so many contenders for being the worst episode of the show. And I mean a lot. There's the one with an alien friend of Yamato's who starts experimenting with his students.
この鉛筆なら問題用紙を盗みに来なくてもどんなテストでも満点よ。この鉛筆で教科書を5回なぞるのよ。そうすれば眠ってたってこの鉛筆が全部記憶してくれるわ。
Another that sees a baby monster imprinting on Yamato. One revolving around a sumo wrestler child with a very awful fight sequence. A fight with Ultra 7 that I was severely hyped up for, only to be disappointed it wasn't the real thing. Still, the one I went with being as my least favorite is titled, I'm a Monster, You Guys. If you have watched the episode of Ultra Q where a boy transforms into a Kanegan, you have pretty much seen this episode. A boy ends up transforming into a monster, loves it initially, only to hate the notion in time.
そのままでいいか元の体がいいかよく考えてみたわ。
僕も絶対このままでいいもん。
The only aspect of redeeming value I can say about this one is 80 shrinks in size to fight a monster inside of the boy's body, as opposed to growing big. Beyond that, it's a stinker beyond stinking. Thankfully, I did have a few contenders for my favorite episode, in which I chose to go with the two-parter Fly to the Sinister Monster Island. Ito is sent to a resort island for a vacation for some reason. There, he disappears.
了解。ポイント7、地表温度はあれは
チーフどうしたんですか？チーフ応答してください。
Yamato, Harada, and Tajima are sent to the island to investigate what is going on and find an estranged girl who is protecting a monster she proclaims to be Ito.
待ってください。やめて。
何をするんだ。
言っちゃってない。あれは伊藤さんよ。
The group discovers a weird mystery that is happening to the islanders and a monster emerges. It has atmosphere. A good story with a tragic end, and one of the best battles of the entire series. Granted, compared to what has come before, it's a tad lackluster, but as an episode in Ultraman 80's library, it is one of the best, if not the best. The DVD. In case you are unaware, Ultraman 80 has not been released on Blu-ray in Japan yet. Thus, it does not have a Blu-ray release in America, only a DVD one as it's only in SD. Now, yeah, let's show this off. Case, slipcase. Disc trays. Discs. What an ingenious concept, you might say, but given Mill Creek does not always release DVDs in actual DVD cases, this might be something revolutionary for them. Then we have a booklet. It has just episode descriptions in it. Very basic episode descriptions in it because it is the descriptions that you saw on Crunchyroll if you had watched the show on Crunchyroll. They're simplistic. No monster info, No character info, nothing on the show itself, just a basic run-of-the-mill, thin, disappointing booklet. Did I say disappointing? Because I really mean disappointing. Audio and video are atrocious at times. 8 to 9 episodes have been crammed onto a single DVD disc, and you can definitely see the effects of the compression. There are times when white clouds feature flashing yellow dots. The picture is soft, blurry, and just lacks detail in many aspects. The audio is even worse because there are times when it would sound hollow or echoey, which was irritable.
だからそれまで待ってください。お願いします。よかった。その代わり赤外線カメラを設置して。これで監視するんだ。はい。ポイント K3S4 での録音作業終わりました。次、ポイント R1、B2。ポイント R1、B2 に到着。直ちに作業を開始します。
大和武は目から赤外線を発射させた。そうすれば暗がりの風景も皆お見通しになるのだ。
The subtitles are fine for the most part as they are accurately translated, albeit with an occasional misspelling or something. One episode spelled Ito's name with ITOU instead of ITO like the rest of the series was doing. The same with Jono, who in one episode had her name spelled Jouno.
大山が原田隊員とジョーの隊員に与えた仕事は怪獣の細胞をもう一度徹底的に分析することだった。
There were a couple of times where the subtitles were mistimed by a slight fraction of a second, which, while it wasn't terrible, was still noticeable whenever a character would say one or two words.
待ってください。私にやらせてください。
君には危険だ。
お願いです。伊藤さんの敵に打ちたい。いえ、父の敵も。
サコさん。
If you have watched the show when it was on Crunchyroll, you already know what to expect with the subtitles as they are the same subs. Overall, Ultraman 80 was just awful. Yes, there are some good episodes to be had throughout the show that keep it from being a complete failure. It's just that I don't feel like any of them were extraordinary because they were just rehashes of what had come before. Now, maybe if I hadn't seen the shows before 80, I would have been more compelled to give this something higher than a 2 out of 5 grown-ups in spandex. It's just not that good of a series and had no idea what it wanted to be. Unless you are a die-hard fan of the Ultra series, skip it. Unless you must own all the physical releases, sadly I have to say skip this DVD. It's just not that good quality. Until next time, bye.
そのこやつはこうやってくるなこのれありゃ
These guys think they're funny, but they're really just like stupid.